Welcome to the Punctibyte for October the 8th. It's hard to believe that October is marching along so quickly already. And this week we will be delving into the world of bacteriophages and ending the week with the Fungus Among Us lecture. Perhaps one of my favorites, and I thought it's very poignant that right now one of the biggest news stories in microbiology is actually the fungal outbreak of meningitis. Already there have been 7 people killed by this outbreak and 57 who are ill. And the craziest thing about this is that it was contaminating. This fungus was found contaminating a pain medication that was being administered to people from a particular pharmacy in New England. So this is quite the story and very poignant for this week's coverage, as we will be diving into the fungus among us later this week. And we'll be beginning with Lab 12, which will be the bacteriophages lab, and I know that many of you will be helping me to give that lecture, and that will be fantastic because also on the 9th of October is our second lecture exam. So we'll be working through both of those at the same time, and I know for many of you, you already know how to help me get the lecture exams to students as they come in. I always put them in that back hallway, and feel free to hand them to students. There is one issue on the exam. There was an extra page that a little piece of a table copied over on, so it's like the students have a little piece of scratch paper in there if needed, and that's all that is. So you can point that out to them when you hand them the exam if you would like to. They can sit probably in either room back there at this point. Also coming up, Lab 13, if you do plan to give the lecture for Lab 13, remember the fungus among us, make sure that you're jazzed for this lecture. Make sure you have time to study for it and that you're really into it. I just want to see a really bang up lecture for that one because it is very lecture heavy and it is a lot of content and great introductory bit for the fungus, but certainly something that I'd like students to really get a good exposure because it's their only exposure really to mycology in general micro. So if you are planning to give that one, and I love it when you do give the lecture, but make sure you are ready to give just one heck of a, bang up lecture for that one if you do plan to do it. So Bo, Alaya, and Mara, you guys are up for Open Lab this week, and that may come with some added intricacies, I guess, because we do need to make sure that on that day we have collected all together the media that we need for the practical exam and any gram stains or other stains that we need for the practical. Now you can do that either during Lab 13 on Thursday or you can do it on Friday, but you do want to make sure that you have enough slides for the gram stain or the direct stain that you're going to have students focus on, because of course they're often wiping those slides off, and we need to make sure we have extras of each of those slides so that the students can everyone can have a slide to focus on and we don't have problems with running out of slides. So do get that together. Also, I would like to have your practical exam questions by the 9th, and I think I already saw that in my inbox I have the practical examples or the practical exam questions for Marielle and Callie. Do feel free to copy everyone on those questions. Also, do remember that we may need to write a new question for the question that focused on oxygen concentration. Just largely because we didn't do that in the lab, and I hate to have questions that are really heavy on things that we didn't cover quite as well. So getting your practical exam questions to me by the 9th, and then media and everything, slides all prepared by the 12th. That would be absolutely fantastic, so that we can all be ready to go for the practical exam on the 16th. Now, I am going to set up for the practical exam on Monday the 15th at about a little after 3 p.m. The reason I'm going to do that rather than setting up on Friday is that I actually have to leave early on Friday. I'll be leaving at about 1 p.m., so about midway through Open Lab on that day. So if anyone is available to help me set up at a little after 3 on Monday, that would be great. Let me know if you are able to help set up for that, and particularly we'll be setting up the morning version during that time. I'll also need help transferring the versions at lunch, so if anybody from the afternoon sections are available, during lunch on the 16th, that's when I'll move everything over to the new practical for that day. Now, also note that coming up are the midterm lab grades when we need to have those entered into eCompanion. And remember, when you're entering those grades into eCompanion, you're going to want to make sure that if a student did not submit a particular assignment, that we have entered a 0 for them for that assignment. That's the only way that their point total will come out correct. So make sure that all of your students' point totals are adding up to the same thing, and then we know that we're all up to date. A little closer to that time, I'll make sure to tell you exactly what that point total is so that we can be certain that every single student is out of the same point total. And then that makes it very easy for me to get midterm grades submitted and be organized with that. So that's very, very appreciated. I think that's most everything for our scheduling. I do want to say one thing. The last Prelab that I made a shell for was for Prelab 13, and so for Prelab 15, you're going to be responsible for making the shell for that. So let me just click over to eCompanion so that we can all take a look at how to add additional Prelabs, and some of you, I have a feeling, have already done this. But under Prelabs, once you've clicked on that and you are in authoring mode, click on Unit Content Items. And then you'll be able to add items to this. So once you do add an item, and it's being a little bit slow here, but once you do add an item, you can then name and add your Prelab. So add items, and then we'll go ahead and do Prelab 15. And we'll select a type, which is exam. That's just because that's the only way we can add questions. It's not really an exam, right? It's just that's the way we can do it. So let's go ahead and do this for lab section. I'll go ahead and do lab section 10, Amy, Sarah, and James. And we'll click Add Items. And then this will show up on the Prelabs. So this is for a Prelab number 15. And I don't know why we have a 14 there, because 14 is actually the practical, so I'm not sure we want that there. Maybe that was supposed to be 15 for lab section D. That would be Erin and Amanda. So I'll click on Prelab 15, which is the one I just added, and here's where you can add questions. One thing that I want to note here is that we need to set the toolbox. So go to Toolbox and edit Schedule, and we need to say what the dates are going to be here. So we can look back at the schedule on this and make sure we get the right dates. So we want it to open on the day of the practical exam, which is the 16th. And for Amy and Sarah and James, we want it to open at 10 a.m. So let's come back on here, and we want the 16th at 10 a.m. Restrict access before that. And then we want it to be due on the 18th at 8 a.m. So we'll get that. Oops, that's 8 p.m. Watch for that. So 8 a.m., restrict access after that. And then this is really important. Make sure you set the review date for the day after it's due, so the 19th. So that's when they can go back in and review their answers and find out what they did. That, you know, they might want to look at the answers that you gave and whatnot, and then say save and close. And that will make certain that this is available at the right time and that their answers aren't released too soon. So that's a really important part of this. So fantastic. Let's go ahead then and talk about the 2 labs that we'll do this week. Not a lot to say on these TA guidelines. There's a lot of self-explanatory material on the TA guidelines, but just a couple things on Lab 12. I will be most of the day in the other room with students going through the concepts from Lab 10. So that means that you guys will be working with them on the dilution that they're doing for their bacteriophage. So one thing on that, the LB agar is in the back hot water bath. That's a small amount because it's an overlay. So make sure they don't get the agar too fast or too far ahead of when they need it and have it solidify on them. So that could be a big issue. Also remember they'll be working with chloroform, so use caution and care with that. Make sure they're using the glass tube with the chloroform. There's a lot of good information given here for the lecture if you're giving the bacteriophage lecture. Also do remember that John is an expert on bacteriophages, so if you need to contact him at all, he always loves to give a little bit of background on this one. For the Fungus Among Us lecture, there's a lot of background information given for this as well if you do happen to be giving that lecture. And do, again, make sure that you're ready to give a bang-up lecture for that one if you do it. And again, I love to see you do it because you guys end up doing such a great job. But make sure you are ready for it, and if not, have me plan to give the Fungus Among Us lecture. Okay, I think that's most everything that I wanted to say today, and I hope that you all had just a fantastic weekend. I'll talk to you soon.